What I wanted to do this morning is just walk through some of the issues related to Envision, the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure, and explain how this tool is beginning to be used in the public arena and what we see happening as the tool gets wider acceptance and application. I should say that the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure is an organization that allows involvement. So part of what we'll talk about also is ability for those of you that are interested to get involved in the various committees as well. So hopefully we'll have time to discuss that as we go through. But as we all know, public works issues are on everyone's mind, not only those that practice in this arena, but those individuals who are involved in using those public works. And we know that it's important for us to provide these public infrastructure for the purpose of sustainability. And I know you've heard about sustainability. You've probably heard more definitions than you'd want to about what sustainability is. And there may be some controversy associated with the term sustainability. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'd just like you to think about sustainability as continual improvement of the quality of life. We all know that roads, bridges, water, drinking water, clean water is important for quality of life. And as we're continually improving that, we're really creating sustainable communities. Want to also recognize that it has to continually improve. Sustainability is not just maintenance. It means continually improving that. And we saw that in the presentation that Rick provided in that street that he showed, that dead-end street. That's an area where flow was restricted. It became stagnant. And as you can see, it affects the quality of life. Opening that up for continual improvement increases the quality of life in a continual manner. So think about sustainability just in the terms of continual improvement of the quality of life. And each and every one of you have a specific role in that as you are providing infrastructure for communities in this country and elsewhere. But when we think about infrastructure, we think often about the roads, the bridges, those things we can see, but we also know there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure that is not seen on a daily basis. Individuals that live in our communities recognize water, subsurface infrastructure issues when there's a problem, when there's a leak, when something goes wrong. But we know that the infrastructure that we are dealing with is not only visible, but it is something that is below ground and it needs to be addressed. This happens to be just a shot of the network of lights that you see at night across the country. And although that infrastructure, the electric infrastructure and the lights that are represented here, just a depiction of where we have infrastructure. In most cases, roads associated with that. In many cases, underground utilities. So there's tremendous amount of public works that really provides the quality of life that we've grown accustomed to here in this country. And again, sustaining that, keeping that continually improvement is important for the quality of life that we've come to expect and expect in the future. We also know that infrastructure is subject to damage from severe events, storms, the recent tornadoes. We could see the damage resulting from that to homes and infrastructure. And so from the standpoint of public works, we always have to think about how we're going to maintain and improve that infrastructure. And unfortunately, when disasters occur, we have to think about it very quickly in many cases. And what we want to make certain we do is, as we think about recovering from those disasters, that we think about how we do that in a sustainable manner. Because as we're replacing or restoring infrastructure, we're talking about infrastructure for the next 50 years. Hurricane Sandy, a recent event that devastated the East Coast, and again, just a lot of damage to infrastructure, and how we respond to that, again, becomes very important. it's not just a matter of replacing what we previously had, but it's also a matter of finding ways to really put more sustainable systems in place, systems that will really improve the quality of life. And that infrastructure that is replaced has to be resilient. It becomes more and more important that that infrastructure be able to withstand these extreme weather situations, that they be resilient so that the communities can recover and come back to life in a quick manner. And there are many different documents that have been published by various agencies regarding how to build resiliency into infrastructure to really account for what may be happening in the coming years with extreme weather events. And again, a lot of this is termed sustainability. Resiliency, sustainability, all points to quality of life in our communities. And as you know, the American Society for Civil Engineers goes through a process of rating or grading our infrastructure. And they've done that just recently this year in 2013. The report card has been released. This report card that you see here is actually from 2009, the last time the report card was issued. And you can see overall, America's infrastructure in 2009 received a grade of D. Lots of issues were identified, and back in 2009, the estimated cost for improvement was $2.2 trillion. The 2013 report card has just come out. It's available on the ASCE website, and the grade is now D+. Oh, some of you are happy there's an improvement. Okay. However, not all areas improved. Some areas did, but drinking water, still a D. Hazardous waste, D. Levees, D-. Wastewater, D. Bridges, C+. Roads, D. Public transit, D. So when the American Society of Civil Engineers looks at our infrastructure, they recognize the problems associated with that. And in order for us to improve infrastructure to hopefully a passing grade, the investment by 2020 is set now at $3.6 trillion. So there's a significant investment that needs to be made, and many of you see the opportunities there for really helping address this. How those monies are going to be made available for us to really do what needs to be done is still an issue of concern and discussion. And although we've seen some movement with regard to funding for infrastructure, the continued work of all of us is required to really demonstrate how important infrastructure is to each and every person and their quality of life. And we're hoping, I guess we're all hoping, that monies will be made available to address infrastructure needs in a systematic manner, and as that infrastructure is looked at, it is designed and implemented in a sustainable manner. Perhaps you're familiar with LEED. The U.S. Green Building Council established LEED, the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design program, about 10 years ago. That program, which really focused on vertical, habitable infrastructure initially, buildings and the like, changed the way the industry, the building industry, looked at sustainability. It was the first attempt to really find a way to improve the sustainability of infrastructure. And in the past 10 years, it has caught on and changed the way buildings are looked at, buildings are designed, and what we've seen is even to the point of how buildings are maintained and operated. It has really demonstrated that the improvement of the sustainability of a building, In other words, finding ways to reduce energy demand, make it more efficient, finding ways to conserve water in those buildings has become important to occupants and the community. And the building industry has recognized that, and that's why you see LEED being something that has been adopted widely. We know also that those individuals that are focused in the area of sustainability for other infrastructure, the question has always been, does LEED apply to the types of things we do? And many of you have seen situations where the LEED criteria has been applied to something perhaps outside of the realm of vertical infrastructure as a way to just start looking at what is a sustainable project. It's very difficult in the absence of some guideline to say this project as designed this way is better or more sustainable than a project designed this way. So the U.S. Green Building Council, the LEED criteria really has helped the building industry as well as the owners of those buildings. And we also see that there's a premium associated with those buildings that achieve LEED certification. So what that really resulted in was a concern on the part of civil engineers across the country about how a similar transformation in the marketplace could be achieved in the absence of some rating system that objectively would define the sustainability of projects. We've often seen situations where, as consultants, I work for a consulting firm, CDM Smith, we see RFPs where the owner will ask for a sustainable project, and each respondent would probably respond in a different way about what equates to projects or the proposals absent some criteria. And so we know that this interest in demonstrating that the project is sustainable is something clients and the public works departments are very interested in. But again, having a way to say this approach is a sustainable approach had been absent. The civil engineering community in the American Society of Civil Engineers, the largest civil engineering professional association, recognized this need and started developing a tool that could be used to assess different projects from the standpoint of sustainability. In addition, the American Public Works Association began to realize that some kind of tool would be necessary as more and more clients and communities were saying, we want our projects to be sustainable. And at the same time, ACEC, the American Council of Engineering Companies, which represents consultants, many of the consultants that are sitting in this room, also saw a need for a system. Now, these three different organizations were each working down the path to develop a tool. In addition, there were multiple organizations, consulting firms, different entities, also building a tool that they would make available to assess sustainability of infrastructure projects. Well, ACEC, APWA, and ASCE got together and said, no reason for us to have multiple tools. Let's work together and have one tool that really addresses the needs of civil infrastructure. So they reached an agreement and they determined that it wasn't appropriate that it be housed in any one of those organizations, but that a separate organization should be established to address that. And so they founded the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure just a year or two ago. That Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C., with the purpose of advancing the application of Envision to improve infrastructure sustainability. And the hope is that that will really transform the way civil engineering projects are looked at and undertaken. At about the same time, at Harvard University, at the Harvard University Graduate School of Design, the Zofnass program was underway. Paul Zofnass, who is the president of the Environmental Financial Consulting Group, had funded studies to be undertaken to assess how infrastructure could be assessed. And the tool that they developed, which was being developed independently from ASCE, ACEC, and APWA, really dovetailed very nicely. And so the Harvard Zofnass program at Harvard University met with ISI, and they've developed this tool in partnership. And it was the best of both worlds coming together with one tool that really now represents all of civil infrastructure and will be available to move forward. So why Envision? Why was it that this was a tool that came about? And there are a number of reasons for this, but really it provides an objective framework for assessing project sustainability. As I mentioned in the past, we'd see RFPs from clients, and the RFP would say, we want a sustainable project. How do you demonstrate that? How does one demonstrate that? And so this Envision framework provides that, that approach, a common framework that we can all look to as a way to demonstrate that. Now, we know, for instance, that when a consultant sees something in an RFP, they understand that they need to meet the client's needs. And so it's an important thing to demonstrate that. And I think one of the things that we definitely recognize is that as clients begin to think about Envision and how it gets applied, it really helps drive the marketplace forward. Rick Galceran and his Department of Public Works here in Dallas has affected infrastructure across the country. In their recent RFP, they included a requirement for use of Envision, and that has gotten attention here in Texas. The number of individuals that are becoming accredited in Texas has increased dramatically. Others across the country are seeing the leadership that Rick and his department have put together and now emulating that because they want to know how is it that they can include this in their requests for proposals, and the way that's being done is by sharing some of the things that are being done here in Dallas and how it's being included. And it's interesting that his department thought about this for quite a while ago, and so Dorsey Clark, who contacted Rachel, said, is there a way we can build this in? And they indicated that they were looking at ways to include this, and when it actually came out in that RFQ, it really did ignite the interest of the consulting world as well as the departments of public work across the country. So right here in this state, in this area, moving forward with Envision is something that is taking shape. One of the tools that we use to get people thinking about sustainability is Envision. It's a tool that helps guide the process. And so many staff that perhaps say, I don't really know much about sustainability, I don't know how to assess this, this tool, Envision, provides that framework to help guide your team in conducting the design of a project in a sustainable manner. It also helps clients to demonstrate to their communities, their stakeholders, that they're doing things in a sustainable manner. And much like LEED, which provides certification at different levels, Envision does as well. So if you have a project and it's designed and you follow the Envision process, you can submit that project for verification, and it can also achieve recognition at different levels, similar to LEED, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum recognition. However, it's not a requirement. You do not need to submit your project for certification. You can use the tool in your organization to help guide the process and not ever submit it to ISI. However, what we found is as we start using it, the public directors are very interested in it, and they're interested in finding out how they can actually get recognition for what they're doing. And so the tool is available. It's, this happens to be a shot of the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure website. You can find it by typing in sustainable infrastructure or going directly to www.sustainableinfrastructure.org, and you'll get to this website and you'll have access to the resources and tools that are available. The Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure makes the tools available free of charge. So you can download the manual, which gives instructions on how to use the tool, and you can download a simple Excel spreadsheet that can guide you through the different criteria that are considered. And you can also go to their website and use their online system and use that to build out your project, again, at no cost and without any obligation to submit your project for verification or certification. And as I said, the tool is really applicable to any type of horizontal civil infrastructure project, whether it be a water project, a roadway project, an energy project. And it's being applied to these different types of projects as a way to continually improve the system as well. So as I said, the website includes a number of tools that are available for use. The checklist, again, a spreadsheet. You can download that Excel spreadsheet and use it on your projects now from any perspective as a way to guide you through the project and how to address sustainability issues. The web-based tool really allows you to capture the information. It's a more rigorous process. It takes a little more time to include the documentation that you're assembling to demonstrate achievement. And then there are other tools that are currently being developed. We heard discussion about life cycle analysis. There's interest in developing tools that can help organizations do a life cycle analysis. Economics is always a question, so how do you determine which project is optimum from an economic standpoint? And there's a committee that's actually starting to put together those things. So the suite of tools continues to build out. ISI is continuing to develop these as a way to transform civil infrastructure and achieve more sustainable projects going forward. I'm not going to go through the tool in detail, but just wanted to give you a sense of the types of things that are covered. And there are 60 credits within the Envision tool, both the checklist and the complete system, addressing these 5 categories: quality of life, leadership, resource allocation, and that goes to situations like reusing shingles, recycling shingles in asphalt. There are ways to address that within Envision, the natural world, and then climate and risk associated with that. One of the things that is unique to Envision is it not only asks the question, are you doing the project right? It also asks, are you doing the right project? So really it gets back to the issue of how are you driving that project forward? Is it the right project from a standpoint of sustainability? And that is key to having a discussion with stakeholders and the project owners about whether they are committed to sustainability within their organization. So those of you that are familiar with LEED, when you look at this tool, you'll see that there are some things that really are not included in LEED or perhaps other rating criteria. But it helps in guiding the project and making certain that all of these considerations are really taken into account. This happens to be just an image. I hope you can see that. I know we have screens around the room. But it's an image of the web-based tool under the criteria of quality of life. And this is just an example. You'll see a series of questions that are asked, and you respond to those with what you think the level has been. And there are different levels from improved, superior, and restorative that you can basically insert, and that will result in a score. You'll see that there's a place for including notes in the documentation you have to support that, because you're basically going through and making a case for why that value is appropriate. And you'll see that in each of the question areas, you'll see a blue highlighted URL, or actually hyperlink. That will take you directly to the manual where that topic is discussed and more detail is provided about each and every one of the questions and how you can respond to that. So the tool actually is something that you can start working through without necessarily having any training. You can work through this process and understand how the tool can be used. If, however, you're interested in getting certification for your project, then the requirement is that that application be submitted, or that the project team and individuals that develop that application include individuals that are accredited as Envision sustainability professionals. And that process is something I'll explain in a bit. But we do see that increasing numbers of organizations like the Dallas Department of Public Works are beginning to advocate for the use of Envision. We know that the founding organizations, APWA, ACEC, and ASCE, are promoting Envision through workshops and presentations at their conferences. And you're going to see more and more conferences that include Envision discussion and how Envision is being used. As more and more projects are pushed through the process, you're going to hear more about case studies, and we're going to learn together about how the tool can best be used. But you'll be seeing more and more papers and articles across the civil engineering spectrum about the use of Envision. We know one thing that really drove the adoption of LEED was when the federal government basically said that LEED is an important criteria, and many of the departments within the federal government really have set criteria for achieving LEED in their new buildings. That really moved LEED very quickly into the marketplace. Now, what we know is that Envision has only been released for the past year. Its 1-year anniversary was last month. But within that time frame, the number of projects that are being applied continues to grow. And from my perspective, the rate at which the adoption is occurring is much greater, steeper curve than for LEED. And we expect to see the federal government soon addressing that. This happens to be one of the sessions that was undertaken to raise awareness about Envision. And this was at the White House. It was the Council of Environmental Quality that basically held a workshop. And this happens to be Paul Zofnas, who leads the Zofnas program for sustainable infrastructure at Harvard Graduate School of Design. And they actually did a workshop. They pulled together leading individuals in the civil infrastructure field, and they basically were pointing to the fact that this tool is going to help improve civil infrastructure in a sustainable manner the way LEED has. So we haven't yet seen direct input into federal documentation, but we expect that that is something that will happen very soon. Now, quickly to talk about some of the opportunities for consideration. ISI, again, has been established. It is a nonprofit organization, and its website provides this information available to everyone on a free basis. So if you want to learn more about ISI, you can go to the ISI website at sustainableinfrastructure.org, and you can look through and read about the various parts of Envision. You can also consider membership, and what we're seeing is more and more organizations are becoming charter members in ISI as a way to support the program, as a way to get more people involved in the program from their perspective. We see also professional organizations like the American Waterworks Association, AWWA. They are charter members. So the list of charter members, organizations, and private sector companies, as well as Public Works Department, continues to grow. So that's a worthwhile thing to consider. We know, for instance, that the Department of Public Works in Los Angeles, they have at least 12 individuals that have become accredited as Envision sustainability professionals. And so one of the things you might consider is becoming accredited. And that accreditation basically requires that you currently take a 6-module webinar. Each module is about 1 hour long, and after completion of that, you can then take an online exam that, again, allows you to go through and respond to questions. It's an open book exam, and at that point, you are credentialed as an environmental sustainability professional. Later this year, we'll actually be holding an accreditation workshop at the Texas Centennial, the ASCE Texas Centennial, that'll be held in September. And that'll be one of the first workshops where individuals can actually come and sit in a workshop and meet the prerequisites for taking the exam. We know not everyone is interested in sitting in front of a computer screen and taking a webinar, so we're providing multiple ways for individuals to get involved. ISI is, again, a nonprofit organization, and it really is driven by its members as well as volunteers. So we have quite a few committees with individuals from a full spectrum across the board that are involved in this. I chair the Professional Development Committee. We're looking for additional help in developing the tools that will help drive Envision. And we've got quite a few individuals from the Dallas-Fort Worth area that are actively involved in that and other committees. So there's opportunities to get involved. If you want to track along with it, on the website you'll see a list of the committees, what those committees are doing, and if you're interested, you can join up and become a part of a committee activity. The application of projects and putting those projects into place, that is an area that also ISI is looking for more projects to be assessed. So one way to try out Envision is to start with the checklist and apply it to a project as you go through looking at how you're going to design a sustainable project. And again, let me point out for those of you that are on the public works side, as Dallas did, including reference to Envision in your RFPs really helps to drive this in the engineering community. The Port of Long Beach has included Envision in a recent RFP. The Massachusetts Water Resources Authority that deals with water and wastewater in Boston and the surrounding area, they issued 2 recent RFPs, one for a pipeline replacement, a drinking water pipeline replacement, another for a wastewater treatment plant expansion, and in both cases they pointed to Envision. So we're beginning to see this being addressed from the standpoint of requests for qualifications, requests for proposals, and the public works arena is beginning to realize that for their part, they will get something that they compare one-to-one across the different bidders and proposers. So lots of opportunities to get involved in Envision. This is in the presentation. It lists some of those committees I mentioned. Lots of opportunities for involvement or listening in as we go forward. And just like to close, a reminder, again, sustainability, it's continually improving the quality of life. Envision provides this objective framework for assessing project sustainability. It helps to build awareness of sustainability in the project team. So in many cases, we talk to individuals, engineers, scientists who say, I really don't know what sustainability is about. This tool helps to educate and raise awareness about what it is and how it can be built in. And the certification process provides demonstration that projects are sustainable through the recognition program. So with the ISI Envision program, we're hoping that as the infrastructure is being designed for the next 50 years, that it's going to be more resilient and that it's going to be done in a way that really considers sustainability. And we're hoping that the tool continues to find application in public works to address sustainability. And with that, I'm not certain if we have time for questions, but if we do, a couple of questions?